I first encountered Eileen Agar's work probably while a student at St Martin's in the 90s, and I think it's been such an important inspiration because I think she's much more than one artist. She's at least 5 artists in the way I see her, and that was so important, not just to me, but I think to a whole generation of artists who didn't want to be bound to doing just one thing. For me, making art is an exploration. It is a kind of alchemy. You know, what Eileen always did was a kind of ocean alchemy. I love these works where she's finding elements, you know, on the beach, from the sea, and it's almost like a really basic acknowledgement of the sea giving up its treasures and the artist just being a medium or translator. And I love that sort of more modest intervention. It's often how I think of that role or relationship of the artist to the much larger natural environment and what the proportions are. You know, our scale versus the oceans or the skies is minute, and it's really important. I think it's the sign of a really great artist that they're not undermined or overwhelmed by that. I really love works like these, like Procession. This is 1934. There's elements of collage, bricolage, paint. It's on a kind of rough bit of board that could be flotsam from the sea, and you've got these sort of interesting figures like the bird with the human head, and this almost somewhat scary kind of mistress of destinies. And I think, you know, it's really sort of unpicking a set of unconscious symbols and working them in with found elements to really sort of be, in a way, I think people always sort of coalesced around the collages that came later or the earlier paintings because they were more easily defined. But I think as an artist, we often love the works that other people struggle with. And I see this as a really interesting, awkward work, and I think awkward in a good way. I really love artists who step out of their own work and think of their larger impact on the cultural sphere. And I really wanted to just flag up The Island, which was a journal that Agar co-edited. I mean, I love the graphic, the sort of woodcut that kind of is the cover image. I love interaction between art and spirituality, mysticism, that's the sort of defining thematic. It feels obviously of its time, but ahead of its time, both. And of course, I love the title. I mean, I've used Island in titles of so many of my own works, so obviously there's almost a sort of unconscious acknowledgement there. So the sea serpent, you know, it's representative of, you know, for me, almost the deeper unconscious, you know, ideas of the Kraken or Leviathan. It's what lies beneath the veneer of so-called civilized society. And I really think it's those depths that Agar was plumbing. In my own work, I've been working on a massively tentacular project. It's called Leviathan, so relating to mythic sea creatures like the sea serpent in Sark, depicted here. And, you know, for me, it's been about thinking through where human and marine ecologies connect and bringing in so many things into that, from sort of overfishing to coral reef ecosystems to thinking about some of the more recently discovered creatures in the deeper oceans that almost feel like creatures out of Agar's imaginary. It's also really great to see this show here at Leeds Art Gallery because it has so many kind of ripples and connections with other works in the collection. Thinking about the Pluminarch photographs and Paul Nash's later photographic and bricolage work, there's a great example in Leeds' collection called Only Egg, and a lot of Agar's painting of that period around the mid-30s. There's a real connection to Gillian Ayres, who would come later, and you know, there's an example of her work, Helios, also in the collection. And I think it's that interesting ability to influence countless generations of artists and still be relevant that I think this show moving around and attention on Agar's practice is very overdue.